Well, welcome back, everybody. And what I want to talk about today is, our process is called brand and culture alignment. And just to remind everybody what that means, brand for us is behavior, and culture is the feelings that you get, the sense of pride that you get that motivates your behavior. Now, what makes it a culture is the fact that it's shared by a lot of people who are focused together as part of a team or part of a company on a common mission. So, motivating behaviors in individuals become a culture when everybody shares that motivation, when everybody's proud of the same thing, and then the behavior they exhibit when they manifest that pride, the way they treat employees, the way they treat each other, the way they handle their work. All those things collectively are their brand, that shared pattern of behavior that identifies them as a member of that team. So when you walk into an Apple store, there are patterns of behavior that you observe and logo hanging on the wall and products surrounding you that make it clear that you're in an Apple store. And there's a culture that kind of goes along with that, a set of feelings that go along with that. And anyway, brand and culture alignment really for us is a very behavioral, kind of a scientific thing. What I'm going to do now is bring up my note system. It's very fancy, and I'm going to walk us first of all through a reminder. And you may remember in the first episode, we talked about how people really do learn by emulating, observing, and patterning their behavior after role models. And that power of role models is really at the essence, it's at the heart of any strong brand. Every organization has, if it's a successful organization, has at the heart of it a role model. We actually call that a role target that represents that organization's collective best self doing its best day at work. Now, in order to measure that, we've developed a system that is based on 4 ideal role models, the first of whom is a role model that we call the expert. So our image for that is, let's say, a watchmaker, somebody who works in detail. This is somebody who knows an awful lot about just one thing. They concentrate on it, learn, improve their skills in it, improve their knowledge of it on a continuing basis, tend to work in isolation, never make any mistakes or rarely make mistakes, measure twice, cut once. And the value system that drives the expert is precision. They're proud of the fact that they're very exacting in their work. The second is a driver. A brand definition is driver. Drivers are people who get to the point, cut to the chase, move things forward, and often set deadlines. So experts, drivers, creators. This is kind of the way I'm naturally wired. And we mentioned in prior shows, in order to be effective at what I do, I need to dial this back. And I'm consciously mindful of that when I work. Although my nature might be to be a little spontaneous. Spontaneity doesn't always work for me in what I do. So where I use it here and there, I don't make a point of highlighting it all the time. And that's part of one of the adaptations I make when I'm expressing my workplace brand and culture. Anyway, a creator is somebody who thinks outside the box, puts a lampshade on their head, does surprising things, does things mostly to get a rise out of people. And then finally, there's the caretaker. And the caretaker is somebody who follows a method, follows a procedure, respects tradition, believes the rules were made to be followed, and also works well with others. They know what tools to use. They carry those tools. They use those tools the way they were trained to use them. They follow a checklist to make sure they don't miss any steps. Anyway, those 4 role models collectively, when you arrange them, represent our model of brand and culture. This is how we quantify brand and culture. Precision, resolve, innovation, harmony. Those are the 4 cultural quadrants in our model. They each represent the extremes, those 4 extremes. And so far, we've been describing them as individual characteristics. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I know this model works. One of them I related in our first episode when I talked about my experience in audience research at NBC. I won't repeat that. You can go back and you can hear that story if you go back to my first of the 5 talking heads that I'm going to be doing. In this one, what I want to do is tell you the other reason why I know that this works. And it's because while we were developing this method, I spent a little bit of time with a developmental psychologist that I know. And I was describing the model to her. And she said, it's interesting because the model you're describing is what we observe when we watch children at play. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, when kids play, and we're not talking about competitive sports like baseball or football or soccer, we're talking about pretend play, although there's another word for that I'll tell you in a second that'll really kind of turn your head upside down, that she taught me. When kids get together to play, they play 4 different kinds of games. One of the games that they play is the teacher game. Let's play school, where one of the kids is the teacher and they're imparting knowledge on a particular subject to the other kids. That's game number 1. Let's play school. Game number 2 is the authority game. One of the kids gets to be a police officer. One of the kids gets to be a fireman or a firefighter. One kid gets to have authority or responsibility for getting things done. And in the play, they are enacting getting things done with the other kids that they're playing with. That's the second game. The third game is the circus game. Let's put on a play, or let's put on a play, or let's put on a show. The circus game. That's the third kind of game that kids play. Pretending to be animals, pretending to be a ringmaster, building a pretend stage, acting out scenarios on the stage for the other kids who are in the audience. That's game number 3. And game number 4 is the let's take care of somebody game. Take care of somebody game. That's doctor or nurse, where we sit together and pretend that we take care of each other. We cure each other. We treat each other. Okay, now what does this mean? This means that when you get people together in groups, and we're talking about adults here, not just children. When you get people together in groups, they play 4 games. They play the resolve driver game, which is an organization that directs an outcome, or they play the precision expert game, which is an organization that analyzes things deeply and professes expertise in a particular body of knowledge, a research company, or they play the entertainment game, let's impress, surprise, and motivate people, or they play hospital, doctor, that take care of people game. What this means is that when you organize people into groups or teams, their activities naturally fall into 4 broad patterns of behavior, brand, and culture. And those 4 games that kids play actually neatly map. And another reason why I know that our model works is because the games kids actually spontaneously play very neatly map into this model of brand and culture that we created. Now, we've already talked about this, but I'm going to restate it. If you've ever heard the expression that when somebody saw something, their mind immediately jumped to a certain place, meaning I saw an Apple logo, or I saw a police officer wearing a uniform, or I saw a nurse wearing scrubs, your mind immediately goes to a certain place because that behavior is emblematic of one of the 4 games that people play when they get together collectively. I mean, you recognize uniforms that people wear. You recognize behaviors that they engage in. You associate those often with organizations that those people might be a part of. Now, we've already seen that there have been some research studies done that indicate that when you say analytical words like scientific or exacting or meticulous, that there's a certain pattern of behavior that lights up in a PET scan in the human brain, and this has been observed worldwide. So it appears that this isn't culturally specific. It's not specific to a particular country. It seems like when you say your brain immediately goes there, when you see a scientist, this is the place where your brain goes. That the brand scientist takes your brain here. That's important to remember. We'll see why that's important a little later on. When you talk about the military, or you talk about a police department, or you talk about a firehouse, your brain goes here. There's a thought pattern associated with that level of play. You learn this when you were very little. It might even be ingrained. We're not sure if this is learned or inborn. We just know that it's been observed all over the world. That when you see people acting out authority in scenarios, your brain goes there. When you see people having fun, entertaining each other, surprising each other, dancing around with lampshades on their heads, your brain tends to go here. That's the innovation culture. And when you see people working together, solving problems by following a checklist, using the right tools, maybe wearing uniforms, where the uniforms identify them as members of a team, then your brain naturally tends to go here. So There are brain patterns associated with strong brands. Those brain patterns are what build customer loyalty and, more importantly, or just as importantly, employee loyalty. This is a very important point that we like to make, and I think we made this point in episode number 2. There is really, in any company, no actual practical difference between HR and marketing. HR is about the people inside the company. Marketing is about the people outside the company. They're both about people. What we've learned in our research is something that confirms research that was done for an advertising campaign for the Pepsi generation back in the 70s and 80s. People don't buy products because of the product. They buy products because of the way it makes them feel. The actual statement of that is, when I buy from you or I want to come to work for you, it's because I believe that choice will make me a better version of myself. And that better version of self really is embodied in the brain activity that you inspire in me as I get to know you and get to learn more about you, and I get to perceive your brand. Now, what does this mean in practical terms? Okay, here we go. And this is where it gets to be, for me anyway, a lot of fun. What we've done here is to organize 16 more or less familiar logos into 16 squares on our 4-factor model. Now, if you look at the logo here, Lockheed Martin, that is a pure red logo. That is all there is in the corporate Kool-Aid, in the water cooler for Lockheed Martin, is red Kool-Aid. When I drink red Kool-Aid, I want to get to the point. I want to identify solutions. I want to work hard to get things done and get things done on time. I've become very schedule oriented. When I go to Six Flags, I want to have fun. I don't want 2 days to be the same. I want to be safe. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm mostly about there, it's called Great Adventure for a reason. And that is, I'm into the adventure that it offers. And that's the promise it makes to me. That is a very yellow, innovation-oriented promise. Red, resolve, that's Lockheed Martin. Yellow, innovation, that's Six Flags. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia takes care of sick children and also takes care of their families. That is about as green a mission as you'll find. The people at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia dress the part, they act the part, they listen very carefully, they try to calm situations that might become inflamed down, as they often do when you're dealing with the health of your child. They're really good at dealing with people in often the worst circumstances they find themselves in their lives. That is very green. And in Geneva, Switzerland, there's a group of scientists, and we've actually done a little bit of work with these guys. It's the particle physics lab at CERN, which is in Geneva. And these guys find tiny little particles of matter that you can only find when you accelerate them at the speed of light. And I don't pretend to understand that at any level of detail. But I do know that when you see the CERN logo, and I'll explain that in a second, and when you understand really what CERN does, your brain goes to the precision quadrant. You think about experts who know an awful lot about a specific body of knowledge, who are better equipped than anybody else to explain, and certainly better furnished with the knowledge they need to understand that body of knowledge. So let's take a look at these logos blown up a little bit. Because as it turns out, every company is a combination of actually all 4 of the culture, of the brand and culture elements that we talked about. But we're going to simplify the model to just 2. Let's start with the particle physics lab guys, CERN. Their water cooler Kool-Aid is 3 scoops blue, absolutely all blue. And if you look at their logo, this is interesting to me. When you see a logo that is drawn to scale, geometrically precise, the nature of that logo draws you to the precision brain pattern. So an organization that is an expert organization will often have a logo that is a geometric diagram drawn to a great deal of precision. That's not surprising. This is a really good example of that. I picked Google Analytics because I'm somewhat familiar with what they do. Google Analytics is blue. It is 2 scoops blue. No question about that. But the reason why they make the analytics promise that they make is so that you can drive better results on the internet. So their water cooler is 2 scoops blue, 1 scoop red. And as a result of that, if you look at their logo now, all of a sudden the soft curves of CERN have become sharper angles for Google Analytics. Arrows that show connection, points, especially that show progress or that show a geometric progression or a numerical progression. Those are all really good examples of logos that represent precision in some way. When you mix it with red, you add a certain amount of red color to it, you put angles in it, that makes it red. Okay, so the brand that you see in the logo is emblematic of the combination of brand and culture that represents the brain pattern that your brain goes to when you see that logo. It's where that company wants your brain to go. Let's keep going. Take another look at Lockheed Martin. When you see a logo that has arrows in it, and those arrows show direction, when you see a logo that has arrows in it, that is red. Now, Lockheed Martin is pure red. They're an example of a logo that promises and delivers getting things done, identifying the target, eliminating the target. Remember, this is the defense contractor part of Lockheed Martin. Now, when you slide over a little bit here to the Central Intelligence Agency, things become a little bit more analytical and a little bit more scientific and a little bit more geometrically precise. It is a red organization, which is signified by the fact that it has an official seal. But inside that seal, there's a geometric diagram that indicates the brand blue. The Central Intelligence Agency is about influencing and affecting policy, government policy, that's red. And the way they deliver on that promise is by analyzing, gathering information, studying, and reducing it to something actionable as a result. Accenture, I like Accenture. Remember, here we go again. There's an arrow that shows direction in the logo. That is red. You can always count on Accenture to give you firm, strong, direct advice about what you should do next. But at the same time, they deliver it by working together collaboratively with you and the members of your organization, forming teams to achieve the results that they ultimately end up recommending. So that is Accenture. Accenture is 2 scoops red, 1 scoop green in the water cooler. And favorite of mine because I used to work there. NBC, well, really, I made a little mistake here. This really should be yellow. Whoops. Hang on a second. They are really 2 scoops yellow. NBC, though, has a news organization. They're 2 scoops yellow, 1 scoop blue. Six Flags is pure yellow, strictly about the creativity. Advertising agencies are 2 scoops yellow, 1 scoop red. The yellow represents the creative promise that they make. The red represents their method, which is to drive your behavior in a way that improves your market share. And finally, a favorite of mine is Amazon. And I want to talk about Amazon because that's going to bring all this home. Let's take a look at Amazon. We're in the green quadrant, which means primarily any logo, any company that is 2 scoops green is going to be about building a community of people who respect each other and understand each other and work together. Amazon is primarily a community. You become a part of Amazon by joining it as a member. Membership comes with privileges and with expectations. Those expectations include principally when they tell you you're going to have a package by Friday, they mean it. So that promise that they make, that because you're a member, you'll get what you ask for and you'll get it when they say you're going to get it, and that they won't fail at that task, that is what makes Amazon and their brand 2 scoops green in their water cooler and 1 scoop red. Now, I want to x-ray that a little bit because I want to show you how that translates to their logo. Arrows that show direction are red. Soft curves, circles, those are green. So when you're looking at a logo and you see a lot of curves and circles and round shapes, that logo is getting your brain to move in the green direction by showing you those shapes. The Amazon logo has a smile in it. That is a green smile. But at the same time, at the very right end of that arrow, of that smile, there is an arrowhead. That arrowhead shows direction. That makes their logo 2 scoops green, 1 scoop red. I'm hoping you all follow this, because your logo, if it's green, it's going to have circles in it. If it's yellow, it's going to have a lot of different colors and a lot of unusual shapes in it that don't necessarily match. If it's red, it's going to show arrows that indicate direction. If it's blue, it's going to show geometric shapes or arrows that show connection between things, not direction, but connection. That's how you convey graphically the red, yellow, green, and blue brand and culture model elements. And if you design your logo the right way, as soon as somebody sees that image, their brain will immediately go there. That's the magic of it. Now, I'm not a graphic artist, but I can tell you, if you give those guidelines to your graphic artist and tell them those are the elements you want to see, then that'll begin to work. Now, I want to talk a little bit about sub-brands, because eventually companies become so successful that they make other promises too. Prime Video promises to entertain you. That is their principal promise. Prime Video is a sub-brand of Amazon. That company, really, it's a whole separate company, is 2 scoops yellow, 1 scoop green. It's a member community again, primarily focused on entertaining you. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that they still have the same logo type elements that Amazon had. Over a period of time, I am predicting that you will see this change. It's already changed to a pretty big extent. Originally, what is currently known today as Prime Video was Amazon Prime. There was a very, very strong connection between the video, online on-demand video part of Amazon and the Amazon delivery system, the package delivery and order fulfillment system. Over time, they've changed the name of this part of the company from Amazon Prime to Prime Video. They're changing the logo colors to something different. They're keeping the smile with the arrow at the end of it. And I'm telling you, probably in about a year and a half, you're going to see that go away. What they'll end up doing is creating, if they have any kind of an indication that they're part of Amazon, it'll be very subtly placed somewhere where you hardly notice it. A Prime Video needs to have its own brand. As they gain market share and become more successful, they'll want to take your brain away from where it normally goes when you see the Amazon logo and bring your brain here instead, which means they'll be changing their logo. Now, that's called brand evolution. That means that the people who run Amazon know that while it may have started here, while this might be where the company began, when they inaugurated Prime Video, this is where it needed to migrate to. That is brand evolution, and it represents a shift from water cooler flavors, 2 scoops green, 1 scoop red, to 2 scoops yellow, 1 scoop green. A little bit of green left over, but a whole brand new element of yellow, which does not exist in the Amazon parlance as a company at all. And again, over time, I think you'll see that logo changes to be more indicative of and more reflective of where they want your brain to go. Now, what does this mean to you? Well, if you go back to Talking Heads number 2, and I'm just about finished for today. If you go back to Talking Heads number 2, you'll remember that what we've done is develop a system where we ask everybody in a company to think about the entire company as though we're a single person doing its best work on its best day to keep all of its promises and achieve all of its goals. We take the answers they provide to that question. We provide them with a survey experience where they get to answer a bunch of questions over 15 minutes to quantify those results. And then we plot all those results on a map that show us pictorially where they all landed relative to each other. What we get out of that is a picture of the average. I'm drawing that in here. You can see that. The average of all of their answers. That, for us, isn't a culture or a brand. It's a comfort zone. This draws a picture of the comfort zone that all these people see when they picture their work as though it were a person. And the reason why that's important, and we'll pick up this subject, we're just about finished. We'll pick up this subject next week, is I'll give you an example. When you ask police officers to profile a police department as though we're a single person doing its best work on its best day, what you get back from that is what police officers normally focus on: guns, badges, uniforms. That's the trappings, the brand, the mental brand, the silo, actually, comfort zone of a police department when you think about it. If you ask a school to profile the school when it's doing its best work on its best day, let's say a private school, a high school, private secondary school, what you get back from those teachers is a comfort zone that lands very much in the green. But when you sit down with the leaders of those institutions and you talk to them deeply, now that they understand the model, about what it is they really want from their organizations, the people who run the police departments, these are police chiefs and the communities they serve, they all want to move their police departments further toward green, brand evolution. I want our police officers to be less like police officers and more like teachers. And if you ask the people who run a private school what they want, they'll tell you, I want our teachers to move a little bit more toward the red. I want them to behave a little bit less like teachers and a little bit more like authoritarian police officers. Because what private schools want is more discipline in the culture of the school. What police departments want is less structure, rigidity, and authoritarianism in the culture of the police department. That's brand evolution. And when we get together again next week for Talking Heads number 4 on this subject, we'll talk about how the behavior you engage in drives the brand, and how by making a simple inventory of commitments to change certain behaviors, you can completely change the culture of a team overnight. Team, company, organization, almost instantly. So thank you very much for joining me today.